Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension Service here in beautiful, sunny, and oh so warm Hernando County. And joining me today are my two regular co-hosts. We have Colby Pitts, who is the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Good morning, Colby.
Good morning.
And we also have joining us Bernie, one of our Master Gardener volunteers, the guy who has answers to all the lawn and garden questions that walk in our door every Thursday morning. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
I'm doing well, Bill. Thank you.
And it looks like we have we have one person on here with us live, so that's okay. We try to start right at 10, and then people kind of jump in and join in. So as always, if you have any lawn and garden questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations, ideas, anything, go ahead and put them in the comments. And whether you're watching us on our Facebook page through Facebook Live or through either one of our YouTube channels on YouTube Live, we should see your comment and we'll go ahead and answer your question, share your comment, or whatever it might be. And a perfect example of that is hello. So hello and good morning, chatting with Ailes. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask. I see Anne Marie is on here with us this morning. Good morning. How are you doing up there in beautiful North Florida, darn near Georgia, basically? So I know Bernie and I were asked this morning what we had planned for today and what was on the agenda. We don't really have an agenda when we come on here, guys. We just make ourselves available to answer your questions. And when you ask them, we'll do our very best to answer them. We'll share University of Florida information on them. Teresa is almost always in the background. And I think Teresa was going to join us live today. You guys talk for a moment. And let me go ahead and send Teresa a link if she wants to jump on us here live to help us out this morning. But we do have a question here. So when can I start my seeds for the fall?
That certainly depends.
Time. Depends on what you're growing. But a lot of seeds, you could either start them now indoors, which, that's always a good choice. Or, depending, it may be that you want to hold off another 3 or 4 weeks. But this is right at the start of the season. So some factors that enter in. Where are you located? If you're in northern Florida, you could probably start now without any problem at all. If you're in southern Florida, it's still going to be hot for a while. You could hold off a little longer. But for the people in our area, if you want to start them inside, depending on the maturity of the plant, this is right at the beginning of the season. So between now and the end of this month is start fall gardening.
Yes, I already have my seeds planted in trays, moving them back and forth between outside and in the garage, trying not to leave them out during these blinding thunderstorms because they can get damaged that way. And I got seeds planted for tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants for the fall. And Ailes is in Central Florida, so somewhere near us. So for a lot of things, you can start seeds right now. Other fall crops, you're going to want to plant directly in the ground, so you're going to have to wait until it thinks about cooling off a little bit. I just scheduled a class yesterday, and if you check on our Facebook page, let me go ahead and show you for our Facebook page, and the short name of that is Hernando EXT. So if you go to Facebook and a little search box up at the top, look for Hernando Extension or Hernando EXT, look in events. We have a class coming up on uh, what is it, Wednesday, August 21st. It's going to be online, and it's on vegetable gardening basics. So I realized I hadn't done a class on just basics for people who do not have a vegetable garden but want to start one. Maybe they had a vegetable garden in another state. They've just moved here. They're not really sure how to do it here. Should be really interesting. And I'm definitely going to cover what should be grown when, because you can grow darn near anything here in Central Florida, vegetable wise. Um, Rutabagas, really, really tough to grow here. Rutabagas grow great in Canada, not so well in Central Florida. But
Rhubarb's
everything
another.
else, pardon me?
Rhubarb is another one that doesn't grow well here.
Yeah,
I feel
rhubarb
like you
will not
could.
grow here. Lavender will not do well here. The really, really hot, wet summers pretty much take it out. But pretty much all other vegetables grow here. You just have to grow them at the right time of year. Otherwise, they won't do well at all.
You
I feel
know
like you
that
can say.
this is a great place if you want to do 5-gallon container gardening. Uh,
That's
if
what I'm
if you
doing
got
for a
a
while.
if you got a garage, it really is nice to be able to, the days when it's super hot, stick them in the garage. Just enough protection, keep them from getting totally trashed, and you can start a little early and really start having some decent crops
Hmm.
early. I used to have a friend that uh, planted tomatoes in a wagon, and he would pull them out in the sun in the morning and put them in an air conditioned garage at night. Had big tomatoes year round that way. So, just depends on what kind of garden you anticipate having.
Hmm. And some things like I heard of somebody or read about somebody who had basically figured out how to be able to grow tomatoes year round. So he got a year round harvest, and you have to plant several crops per year. You have to plant the right variety at the right time of year. That's something that I'm going to start playing with because I love homegrown tomatoes. You just have to stagger them, protect them from cold during the winter, and protect them from scorching heat, or realize that you're probably not going to get tomatoes for about 2 months during the heat of summer, unless you're really lucky.
One of the local farmers had a setup where they had a tent that looked like it was made out of shade cloth,
Hmm.
and they somewhat could air condition the little thing, and they were growing big tomatoes on a long time term basis. What amazed me is how big the tomato plants would get. They had a string overhead, and they would grow the plants up on the string, and they would
Hmm.
keep moving this growing string down, and the actual plants themselves would end up being about 15 feet long by the time they were done. So, uh, but they did have great tomatoes, and they had tomatoes probably 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good, really. So it looks like Anne Marie's started Seminole pumpkins. You can still do that. We still have enough summer left. It hasn't cooled off or gotten cold yet. And but Sam has a question here that Teresa could probably help with if she's watching in the background about a hibiscus septorifa is wilting and dying. What can I do to prevent that from happening? I can tell you hibiscus can be fussy. If it's too wet, they'll wilt. A lot
Yeah,
of the leaves turn yellow and drop off. If it's too dry, does the exact same thing. Too much sun and heat, exact same thing. And too much cold in the winter, the leaves turn brown and fall off. So hibiscus can be a little fussy if it's unhappy at the moment.
I would think probably he's got too much water and too much sun. Little shade and not water for a while and see what happens. Otherwise, it's going to die.
Yeah, you have to watch that watering because if you're in the habit of going out there, let's say watering it every morning, which for a large container plant may be a fine idea, but you get 2 inches of rain every afternoon, it gets to the point where your plant is basically growing in a pot full of mud. And most plants are not going to do well. A few will, but most won't. If you're growing rice, rice is fine. Celery is fine. Celery likes it really wet. What else likes it wet? Mint plants like it really wet. They're okay with that. Almost everything else is going to wilt and die or have a problem.
And the symptoms are exactly the same. That is very, very confusing. You can't tell. Too much water, too little water does exactly the same thing to the plant.
That's pretty common. That you have an issue with a plant that looks like one thing, but it also looks like six other things. So that's why
Yeah.
it's really important to know.
I would say people that have chronic problems that way, it starts out they don't get enough water, they start showing symptoms, and then they get overwatered. And because the symptoms don't change, they continue to get overwatered until they die. So,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
that is a very, very awkward thing. That's what makes somebody a gardener is after you've thrown out a few plants and you realize how to water things correctly. If you stick your finger down in the soil and it's totally dry, there's not enough water. And if you stick your finger in and it's wet, that's too much water. So that learning the feel is probably one of the most intuitive things that gardeners develop, and it's a great thing. But remember, you cannot tell the difference between too much water and not enough water. You have to know the history of the plant. And in doubt, you probably watered too much.
Yeah, if it's a problem with the house plant, you're watering too much. People love to overwater house plants. Except for me, because I never get around to watering them, so mine always dry out. So you have to understand the background and the history of it.
I kept succulents in the house for quite some time, and my fiance would go and she'd just be putting water on those things. So it's like, honey, those are they grow in the desert. I think they're all right.
Stick your finger in
So
the soil every time
yeah.
before you water.
Mm-hmm.
After you do that, if you make that a habit, you just get to where it becomes really second nature on all those plants.
You can look at especially with succulents, you can look at them and kind of get a feel because the leaves will get just a little bit wrinkly, and that's when you know if they need a little bit of water, and then and then no more. These things are not, they don't grow in the rainforest.
Yeah.
Oh, got a question here about growing things in grow bags. And Ale says it was challenging. They're trying plant trays. Do you have any suggestions? I know good old fashioned black plastic landscape pots will work just fine. You have to get the right size pot for what you're growing. You want to use a quality potting soil or mix your own potting soil. A lot of people will get the ingredients, the perlite, vermiculite, peat moss, ground bark. It's hard to find the finely ground bark, but it's out. You can get that. Um, to make up their own potting soil mix, it needs to have really good drainage. So if the grow bags didn't have really good drainage, they might be holding the water for too long. And something you always have to remember with growing in a container is the container doesn't change size, the plant does. So I know really soon my eggplants are going to be large enough to put in the pots. Right now, it's a pretty large pot, pretty small eggplant plants. As they grow and become big, a large tomato or eggplant in a pot will use a gallon or more of water per day. You have to water them at least once a day. The plant, when it gets large, will suck that water right out of the soil. But when it's really small, it's not going to do that. You don't have to water as much. So you really have to adjust the watering based on the size of your plant and the water needs. But yeah, grow bags can work really well. You just always have to make sure that what you're using has good drainage so that you can water thoroughly, let the water drain off, let it dry thoroughly before you water again.
One of the problems that I've seen a lot is that people use potting soils with a lot of moss, sphagnum moss,
Mm-hmm.
and if it dries out, it doesn't re-wet in a pot. If you can take the pot and stick it in something and soak it, that's one thing. But if you're using a watering can or something, you always have problems if it ever dries out once. So uh, I avoid the products that have got, look at the main ingredients. I've found that pine bark mulch and compost really are great products for growing most things. And the mosses may be fine for orchids, but they're pretty lousy for things where uh, watering could have any opportunity to be erratic. If you're going to be out of town, you've got plants in pots with sphagnum moss, you've got problems from then on. So
Mm-hmm.
just something to remember.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, please just go ahead and put them in the comments. Um, I had to email Colby the other day because we had a gentleman come in here who had a problem with invasive bamboo. And what happened was they built his house and they left a little area of uncleared land on his property, which was fine with him. And he didn't know that he had a patch of bamboo in the center, but now it's running underground and popping up bing, bing, bing in his yard, his neighbor's yard, and he did not know what to do about it. So I know Colby worked for Southwest Florida Water Management District with managing invasive plants. How often did you see running bamboo like out in the woods or the forest?
So the bamboo that he was talking about, he said that it's these, the thick shoots and where they grow really tall, and we didn't see that too often, but your
Yeah.
treatment methods for both of those tend to be about the same. We saw a lot of the real bushy, um, it get maybe 6 feet tall, but it looks
Yeah,
almost
yeah, yeah.
just like a
That's what
bush.
I've seen a lot of that escapes cultivation.
Yeah, and I've seen plenty of that, but the thing with bamboo is it's really aggressive and it's really hard to kill because if you, for instance, if you were to mow all that bamboo down right to the soil, it's just going to grow back. Your root system might, compact a little bit on the edges might die off, but it's going to grow right back and then nothing. So to take care of it, it is really a labor. You have to. We're talking multiple treatments over the course of years most of the time to completely get rid of it. And especially if you're operating somewhere like the gentleman who came in there where it's growing out of his property, it's even harder to get rid of because you could, in theory, eradicate it on your property.
Hmm.
But the stuff right across the fence is going to grow right back and eventually make its way back onto your property. So really, with bamboo, you want to mow it down, and it sounds kind of counterintuitive. You mow it down, let it grow back up, then you treat it. Then when it dies, you let it grow back up and you treat it again. And over time, after each of those rounds, it'll get a little bit weaker each time. It's definitely kind of chipping away at it, but it is really, really difficult to get rid of. Now, you can use some of the more effective herbicides, like Arsenal, which is a Mazapir that's really soil active, will work better. But he was telling me that he really values his green space around him, and if you spray something like Arsenal on the ground to take care of this bamboo, you're going to kill everything else, and that includes like some of your hardwood trees are going to die. It's a pretty effective nasty herbicide, but it works, right? So I told him that he needed to use Roundup, which is glyphosate, because glyphosate really only works on the things that it touches. It has little to no soil activity. So in theory, you're supposed to mix up a pretty hot, high concentration glyphosate mix, and then, after you've mowed it, let it grow back up to 3 feet. You treat it, and so forth until that root system can't support growing plants or growing shoots anymore. And that's really the strategy with any of the bamboos, even the clumping bamboo is what you would do.
Okay, yeah, I knew that you had hands-on experience with it, and I mean, we hear from a lot of people that, I have weeds in my lawn, I have weeds in my flower bed. Fortunately, we don't hear about running bamboo all that often, but very, very important that people don't plant that in your yard. You will eventually come to really regret that.
Yeah, and really that's the thing of the bamboos. Really, think twice about putting it down. I would say it can become an issue incredibly quickly. Bamboo grows really fast. You have to think bamboo is just a grass, in the grand scheme of things, and it's going to grow quickly and spread quickly, as grasses tend to do.
Okay, we have a question here from Bassem about, can we grow pepino in Central Florida? And if so, what is the best time to start from seeds? I had to look that one up, and I'll go ahead, and if Teresa wants to look up more on it, that'd be great. Um, it's a South American fruit that you can grow here in Florida. I'm not sure the best time of year to plant it. Um, I would assume it is fairly tropical, so growing it over the summer would probably work just fine. And so pepino melons can grow here, if that's what Bassem was asking about. There's a lot of really unusual edible crops that people can grow here, but very, very few people do. More people would probably like to know about them and give them a try. And there are a lot of different tropical crops that grow very well here in the heat of summer, but almost all the traditional European northern part of the United States kind of vegetables do not do well here during the heat of summer. It's just too hot. So I see Teresa found some links also. And Diana has a comment. Good morning, Diana. And she tried using a pre-emergent on the sand spurs like we recommended a while back. I remember that. And she had some grow that she pulled out, but nothing like last year. And that is what happens. If you use a pre-emergent, it will most likely not work perfectly and stop 100% of those weeds from coming back, but you're going to have far fewer. And the ones that do come back, you have the chance to kind of get control of and get on top of and handle them even better. And I've talked to people who it took them a few years, but they really just focused on getting rid of the sand spurs in your yard. And if you're diligent, you can get rid of 99.9% of them. So it will work.
The case with a lot of that stuff, and that's just weeds in your yard or invasive plants. Total eradication is a pipe dream. It'll never happen. There's just way too many variables. Maybe if you put your house in a bubble, your entire yard in a bubble, maybe. But so something like this, that is this comment right here, that is a grade A success. That's exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, if you think about it, if the plant produces 10,000 seeds and you're 99% effective, you still got 100 seeds that have a chance to reproduce next year. So, if you can keep at it for 2 or 3 years with pre-emergent, you finally get it down to where the plant has a hard time surviving. But usually one shot is not going to get rid of anything.
And it's usually a combination of techniques. So she did use a pre-emergent in February-ish, as I remember, and she pulled out what did come up. So it's a combination of chemical control, physical control, being diligent, not letting them go to seed, because now you're just adding to the problem. So hopefully she pulled them up early before they had a chance to flower and begin to set seeds. And we never, when it comes to invasives and things like this, we never talk about eradication. We just talk about control. So you can get sand spurs under control where they're not injuring you, your kids, your pets, everything else. If we all went to your yard 5 years from now and searched really, really, really hard, we'd probably find at least one. But you're going to have to live with one.
Yeah, and you have to remember, in most places, you're not just dealing with your sand spurs, and this is the case with any plant that you're trying to prevent the spread of. It's you have neighbors who may not be as diligent about it as you are. So what I like to tell people, and this is what I told the guy who called about the bamboo, is that you might want to talk to your neighbors and see maybe if they want to help get it off of their property too, because whatever is on your fence line or on your property line is almost certainly going to end up, across either way. Nature doesn't doesn't care about your property lines.
And it looks like Diana did the rug dragging technique also. That's a great way to gather up the seeds before they germinate in the fall. And yeah, we've had dogs before that were little drama queens. They step on one and they'd act like their leg was broken and limping around. And my wife would go like, "Oh, you have a little sticky in your palm, pull it out." So those things could be a problem for everybody, every member of the family. Yes, usually the first ones that let you know that you have sand spurs in the yard will be the pets. Um, let's see if we have anything else on here. Not at the moment, guys. You got any questions? Go ahead and toss them on here.
Well, what I did have conversation about potato beetles. Somebody
Mhm.
asked me a week ago at Master Gardener meeting if the bugs were still available. And, they aren't available anymore, but they are there, and that it was about time for them to come out. Well, I noticed on the air potato vines that I've got that they're starting to show holes all over the place. So the beetles show up sometime in July, and about the time that the air potato plants want to start producing the bulbils, the beetles hack on the plant so bad that they forget what their intent was, and it fouls up a year's production for the potato vine. So they are doing a good job. The university picked a really good little bug. I wish they'd come out sooner, but
Yeah.
you should be seeing holes in your uh, air potato vines now, and within a month that they should look really, really rugged. So really rough. I mean, they're going to be all nothing but some veins and all the soft tissue gone on the vine on the leaves. So the bugs are
Um,
doing their job. Hang on, they're gonna help you out.
I do want to, touch on something really quick, based on a conversation I had with somebody last week. If you're having a, air potato vine issue, you ought to, when you pull them out and try to get rid of them, don't put them in your yard waste. Uh, you ought to put them in a garbage bag, tie them up, and then throw them in the trash. That's probably the best. Or I think there's other methods people are using to make the little potatoes non-viable anymore. But I know that they're not going to grow if you put them in a garbage bag. That's what I
You
was
can freeze
always.
them if you put them in the freezer. And we even experimented with this. I think it has to be for at least 24, 48 hours.
Hmm.
But with air potato, Brazilian pepper, any other really nasty invasives, you should bag them up securely and send them off with your actual garbage because it
Mm-hmm.
goes in a lined cell, a big hole in
Mm-hmm.
the ground with plastic lining. That's where they're going to go. And the seeds and bulbils are not going to escape and start sprouting.
Mm-hmm.
If you cut down a whole bunch of Brazilian pepper in your yard, load it up in the pickup truck, drive to the landfill, and you're leaving a little trail of seeds and berries falling off of it the whole way, you probably just solved the problem at your house, but you've created more problems in the community. So we don't
Yeah,
recommend that.
you have uh, become a vector. I think it's actually illegal. I don't think you can do that. I don't think you're allowed to. I think you have to have a license to be able to transport even the cuttings. Which I don't think anyone's going to get arrested for it or anything. But
You know,
it's
we looked into this years ago when they first passed the ordinance in Hernando County against Brazilian pepper and white lead tree. So this is Hernando County specific, what I'm talking about. They actually got an exemption from FDAX so that people are allowed to transport those plants to the dump or the landfill. But they recommend bagging them up and then taking them to the dump. And when the dump realizes that that's what you have, either Brazilian pepper or white lead tree, they put it in the cell, not with the yard waste to be ground and given back to people, because potentially those seeds are still going to be viable. And when they give that mulch to people to put in their yard, they're just sending the problem all over. So, yeah, we actually had to do that. That exemption expired, but I honestly don't know how tightly they monitor or control what kind of weeds people are dragging up and down the road in their pickup truck going to and from the dump.
I mean, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen people drive down that have cut down a bunch of pepper trees and just got them because those things are huge and they can make a lot of waste.
They get really large.
Yeah. It's amazing how big a plant can be produced just from the bulbil and nothing else. So, we had some here that we had collected to send to the university, and they started growing, and we had some pretty good sized plants that had no earth whatsoever, no soil, and man, they get pretty good size. So there's a lot of energy in one of those.
They are tough plants.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty common thread among invasive plants. We treated coral ardesia, I think in maybe Bartow, where we went out, and so a lot of that coral ardesia they do like a foliar oil, so it sticks to it, but a lot of them are really small, and you end up hand pulling them. So we had this one proper. Actually, no, this was over in the Wiki. This is a different area, state land, a Weeki Wachee Preserve, and we pulled coral ardesia. There was 15 of us out there, walking in a line and pulling it up and sticking it in a garbage bag. And that's exactly what we did because you can't have that. You can't have that stuff just loosey goosey flying around. You have to make sure that it's contained so it doesn't spread. Because you like you said, you might have solved your problem, but you're creating a much worse one for everybody else because you've spread it for miles and miles and miles.
We have a question from Ailes about crabgrass taking over their yard. What can you do? You need to talk to Diana, because Diana asked about southern sandspur months ago, and we recommended using a pre-emergent herbicide for here in Central Florida, Hernando County, generally February. First, second week of February is when you want to put it down, and it greatly reduces the amount coming back. If you have a lot of crabgrass in your yard right now, no really good way to control it at the moment. There's really no spray herbicides that are going to work well on crabgrass. Some of them might work a little bit, but not really well. You really have to control it early in the spring and stop it from popping up and growing. So you're going to need to be using a pre-emergent generally in February.
And if you mix up anything hot enough to kill some crabgrass, well, it's going to kill everything else too. So you want to, like Dr. Bell said, there's not really anything post-emergence that you can do about crabgrass.
We've had really weird early warm weather to the point where on pre-emergence, I've started recommending that you do your first pre-emergent maybe the third week of January, and then do it again late in March, and you pick up the early germinators and the later germinators. But if you get past March trying to cure crabgrass, it's too late. So
yeah, and be very, very careful if you're using any kind of weed killers on your lawns to kill the weeds that are growing there right now. Read that label very carefully. A lot of them have restrictions on how hot it can be. And if it's too hot, when you put that stuff down, when you either put the granules down, mix the spray it, it may kill the weeds and kill your grass too, because heat intensifies the effects of it. And things that maybe you could spray in the winter very safely to kill weeds without killing your lawn, now are going to kill the weeds and kill a little bit of your lawn, maybe your entire lawn. We see that at least once or twice every summer.
I think a lot of times those the herbicide label says like 85 degrees, and it's 85 degrees in Florida for so long and so often. So you just need to really, really be careful. You got to wait till it's really cold outside.
I like one of the weed killers for St. Augustine. It said this can be used with temperatures in the 90s, and the lawn usually recovers. And I thought the word "usually" was very appropriate.
Well, at least it didn't say might.
Yeah.
Even though that might be more accurate.
Yeah.
So if you have problems with weeds in your lawns during summer, you have to take action very, very early to prevent them from coming up. There's really not much point taking care of the summertime weeds really late, because they're about to die and go away anyway. No point spraying a weed that's going to die naturally in 2 weeks. You're kind of wasting your time, your money, your chemicals, everything else. But don't worry, because once we get into fall and winter, cooler weather, there's all kinds of different weeds that come up because they're cool season weeds. So as soon as the summer weeds are dead, the cool season ones come right in and take their spot. So
really
you'll never be without weeds.
Yeah.
So I see Teresa all along has been posting a whole bunch of really great resources here and links. Florida Homeowner Herbicide Guide, Considerations, Applications, and Selection. That is the kind of information, if you're going to be using weed killers, you need to click on, open, hold on to, bookmark, read, and understand. You don't want to just go to the store, grab a bottle of whatever because it has a cool picture on the front, either a bug on its back with its legs up or dead weeds, and then just dump a bunch in your pump sprayer, throw some water in, go out there. Things will probably not work out the way you want them to. So know what you're doing.
Don't buy a herbicide before you have read the label. Stand there in the aisle, read that whole thing, find out if this is what you need. Do your research, and better yet, you can find all the labels for all the herbicides online. Yep. They have to have them available. It is a law that they have them available. So you can go find all that stuff beforehand and then go and buy exactly what you need.
I Google them all the time. So if people call and they have questions about they used a certain product and there's, was it the right product? Something bad happened. What happened? That's the first thing I do. I Google the label and pull up the label, start reading through it. And if you really, really hate the idea of using chemical controls and chemical weed killers in your lawn, we got something for you too. Non-chemical weed control for home landscapes and gardens. Might be a little bit more work, but there are plenty of tips and tricks and things that you can do to at least reduce your weed problems and hopefully get it down to a controllable level that you can live with.
I like it when somebody is out with their little sprayer, wearing shorts and flip-flops. You wonder, what are they actually?
I had a neighbor that used to do that.
Yeah, especially if you're spraying paraquat or something.
Yeah. And Diane is the winner for this week. The label is the law.
Absolutely.
So and the label, like Bernie was just saying, it has all your PPE requirements, because some things are like, you just need to wear long sleeves and you'll be okay. But other ones are like, you need eye protection, you need a respirator, you need, just depending on how particularly nasty that herbicide is. If you see
what kind of respirator you need, there's a million of them.
If you see the people who are licensed and certified and they are wearing their PPE, I think the weekend warriors ought to wear their PPE too. I know it was like when I worked at the district, I'm wearing, it might be 100 degrees outside, but I'm in long pants, long shirt, gloves on, mask on, depending on what we're doing.
Back in the 60s, I worked for a company that did aerial spraying, and the laws were not real strict on what you could spray. But we had a couple things that we were spraying that the pilots would wear a respirator because they were terrified. But every once in a while, they would spray the poor guy that's on the ground that does the reloading, or the flag man. And we had these two chemicals that we were spraying out west. If you accidentally got touched, you went and took a shower. They were told, strip your clothes off on the way to the shower. Don't care if you look naked when you go in, but you got to get water on and get it quick. So there are some products out there that are really bad. They're cancer causing. May not kill you today, but if your leg falls off in a couple of years, you'll start having your toes turn black and disappear. That's stupid. If you didn't need those things, they wouldn't put it on the label. They want to sell products. They want it to be as simple as it can. So they made it as simple as
they don't want to kill anybody and be sued. And they don't want to be the topic of one of those, daytime television, really scary health concern commercials. So I've been in that same exact situation. We were loading a pump doing pump spraying out of the back of a truck, and we're messing with the pump, trying to get everything ready, and we had a line explode, and I'm soaking wet, and right there on the side of the Tampa Bay bypass canal, and got, because it was standard operating procedure. You needed to carry a change of clothes because you don't know what's going to happen. So right there, I hosed myself off with our water jug and got back to it. But it happens.
Yeah. Well, professionals have emergency kits if something spills. Your spill kit, your emergency backup PPE, fire extinguishers, everything. I mean, for professionals, there's a lot of laws, requirements, and everything else that goes behind it. So for a homeowners don't have access to things quite that potentially dangerous. But if you use them in a wrong way, they can become very dangerous. So you must read the directions, and don't go in the very back of your shed and look around and find an old glass bottle from the 1960s and think, oh, this is back when they made the good stuff. I'm going to use this. Don't do that. It's off the market for a good reason.
I don't even know. I think you have to. I'm trying to think. I think maybe you have to take that to a poison control center. I'm not really sure what the disposal process for something like that is.
You can contact the solid waste department. Whatever county you live in, contact your county's solid waste department, and they will tell you what you have to do. The state of Florida used to have a program where they go from county to county and set up and have like amnesty days, and people would bring stuff in. Because we either had one here or we could have had one. It was more for commercial growers. And you could take anything up to like 55-gallon drums if you still had it, on your farm, way in the back of the barn, forgotten about for 20, 30, 40 years.
I remember having to dispose a big tote of expired flares because they treat like explosives like in the same vein, and having to call 3 or 4 different solid waste facilities in the surrounding counties, being like, hey, can you guys take these things? And it's one of those things, like eventually someone would, but it's that proper disposal is really important. That's right on the label as well. It'll tell you exactly how you're supposed to dispose of those of different chemicals like that.
Yeah, I have chemistry as a hobby, and I'm amazed at how over the years things have changed. It used to be, if it wasn't going to explode, you poured it down the sink, and now almost all these things will say reagent 1 you can dispose of in the such and such hazard, and reagent 2 you put it in the aromatic hydrocarbons, and agent 3 you can flush that down the sink, and agent 4 put it in the box and hope that somebody steals it or whatever, So. But they really have gotten to the point where they give you excellent instructions
Mm-hmm.
on just about all these hazardous things anymore. And unfortunately, for some reason, people tend to think that all those instructions apply to the other guy. So, uh, especially if you're a man, if it says use 2 ounces a gallon, for some reason, 5 ounces is probably going to work a lot better. And if it says to wear shoes and long socks and decontaminate them when you're done, that means that flip flops are okay. So all those things uh, for a guy seem to be different than for people. So uh, unfortunately, occasionally I've been a guy. So, but
Yeah, we
I
recommend.
am learning. Stupid is not really an excuse. It's a way of life, but it isn't really an excuse. So
That talking about the herbicides too. I know something we'd have to do even with the containers that comes in. Right,
Mhm.
they want you to. It's the law that everybody over there carried a pocket knife because when you emptied a container, what you did before you threw it away, you had to triple rinse it first off.
Yep.
But after
Yep.
that, you have to take a pocket knife and stick make a big hole in it, so it is impossible to be used. For somebody to carry water, somebody that goes in the trash and gets a container. So you cut it up. I always put 3 holes in it on every side and then put it back in there because this stuff can be dangerous. Nobody wants to drink a glyphosate cocktail.
Okay, guys, looks like we're kind of approaching the end for today in the not too distant future. So if you have any questions, go ahead and get them in the comments. And if you're watching a recording of today's plant clinic and you have any questions for me, there's my email. Email is by far the best way to get in touch with me. If you try to catch me at the office, I mean, I'm at the office right now, but I'm not going to be here for long today. I'm here, there, and everywhere. Or if you try catching me on the phone, probably won't have much luck that way either. So, email is by far the best. We are going to be scheduling more classes for this fall because we have fall vegetable gardening season coming up, fall and winter. It doesn't feel like it right now, but it's going to be here eventually. So it's coming. If you want to find out what kind of classes we have scheduled and coming up, if you go to the little scrolling URL down here, the www.hernandoextension, all one word.com, you're going to see all of our upcoming classes, the information, the links. A lot of them we do online, so it has where you register, what day and time it is, everything you need to know about that. And if you would ever like to speak with Bernie because you have a really difficult lawn and garden question, Bernie is here pretty much every Thursday, not Thanksgiving, and not other holidays when we're closed. And we won't be on here either on those days. But generally, every Thursday, Bernie is here. You can call. There's our office phone number. And like I said earlier, please be sure to follow us on Facebook if you don't already. That's a great way to keep on top of everything we have going on, all of our upcoming classes. We are going to begin this fall having our master gardeners do more Facebook Live, little short Facebook Live tips, tricks, gardening tips, classes, everything. We're in the process of pulling that together. So follow us on Facebook. We got a lot coming up on there. Our master gardeners have a nursery here in Brooksville, and there is the address. It is on the same street where Hernando County Animal Control is. They're at the end of the road. We're halfway down. And the master gardeners are there from 8:30 in the morning until 11 in the morning on Wednesday and Saturday. They sell a great selection of all native or Florida-friendly plants, no invasives, No air potato or Brazilian pepper or tropical plants that are going to freeze and die here, or apple trees that are never going to give you an apple here. It's all stuff that's appropriate for right here in Hernando County or Central Florida. And they are very, very diligent about not having the invasives there. There's certain plants, certain species of plants where there's a native one and there's a non-native one, and they look the same, they flower the same, they both get yellow flowers or whatever, and they'll dig into it. We'll have to send pictures off to the experts to have them figure out, is this the appropriate variety to sell or not so much? So they're really, really good with that. If you want to watch any of our previously recorded classes that we do for the public, Hernando County Government has a YouTube channel. So be sure to check it out. A lot of good information on there. If you go to YouTube and just search for Hernando County Government, you're going to find it. There's a playlist for Florida-friendly landscape, and then one for extension also with all of my previous recorded classes. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, we don't want to forget about Colby. There is Colby's long, complicated email address, because the county gives people long ones. They don't give them nice short ones like UF does. But if you want to find out everything that Colby has going on, if you go to his link tree that has how to contact him, it has, correct me if I'm wrong, a link to his Facebook page and social media, upcoming classes and events, rain barrel classes, compost bin classes, and everything else going on. So one-stop shop.
Utility rebates. There's a link to the plant guide there, a PDF of the plant guide. If you want a plant guide, just give me a call. Send me an email. I can get you one right here for free. You can also get one from this way over at Extension.
Yeah, we have them here at the office for free.
Yeah. So I think that's about all I got.
Okay. Yeah, those plant guides are very helpful, especially for new residents. If you're trying to figure out, well, what grows here and what doesn't, gives you a really good place to start. Because just because a big box store has it for sale and it's beautiful and it's got beautiful flowers on it and it looks beautiful and healthy today, it was grown in a greenhouse somewhere under perfect conditions, and maybe it will grow great here in Hernando County. Maybe it's better suited for south of here, north of here, whatever it might be.
And whatever the case is, they'll sell it to you 8 days of the week.
Yeah. Because it grows really well somewhere, just maybe not here.
One of the things that people should really remember is the number one medium for growing plants is going to be compost and a little soil. And if you can get some compost and get your plant bed set up with compost, you're going to have a lot better winter crop than if you just plant it in the soil. So the county, we keep pushing them, keep bringing it up. Hernando County is in the process of going in the commercial compost business. That is the product you really want if you can obtain it. If you can get compost from any other source, or if you start your own compost pile, it's absolutely the best thing you can do for your garden. So that said, also remember that not only do I take the hard questions, but I will take an occasional easy question if it pops up.
Yes, and Hernando County is in the process of creating compost. They're getting the very, very first little bits out. If you're really, really special, you can get some. Like me, I got some to try out with my container vegetable gardening this fall. I'm going to be recording that on video and kind of documenting about how well that works out. So stay tuned for that. But hopefully soon it's going to be available to anybody in the public here in Hernando County that wants to go to the landfill up there in North Hernando County, almost Citrus County, and pick it up. Hopefully they'll have plenty of it soon. I know we got another quick question or two. Sand spurs, you need to put them in the trash or in the yard waste. Trash should be better. Yard waste, you may be spreading your seeds into some other unfortunate person's flower bed, and we don't
Well,
want to do that.
if it's anything you don't want, they probably don't want it either. So anything like that, I'd probably just put in the trash.
And Colby, do you know off the top of your head when is next rain barrel class?
August 26th, 10 a.m.
Okay.
Look at that. It's already there. She got in the comments for me.
Okay.
So, yeah, August 26th here at my office. It's 10 a.m. I know I've gotten a lot of requests lately for one in the evening, and I believe it's the October one, is going to be in the evening. So if you're working during the day, you can get over there, get you a compost bin or rain barrel. Reminder, rain barrels, $66. It's a really good deal because if you buy something comparable, you're up in the hundreds. And if you're a utilities customer here in Hernando County, we will give you a $30 rebate on your bill.
And it sounds like Alessandra has the right idea here. Thanks for all you do. I always listen to you guys while working in the garden. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And hey, thank you so much, everybody, for following along and joining us live, asking us questions, watching the recording of this. We have really, really great results. We've been doing this for, I guess, about 4.5 years at this point. This coming April will be our 5-year anniversary. I don't know what we're going to do for that. We're going to have to, I'm sure Teresa's going to think up something, fireworks out front or blow, maybe Bernie can blow something up in the front yard. And we don't want to leave today without mentioning that, Bernie, was your birthday today or yesterday?
Yesterday.
So yesterday was Bernie's birthday.
Well, happy belated birthday, Bernie.
Yeah, I am now old enough to be a lumber company, if you understand that.
Bernie, you going to share how old you are, or are we just not going to discuss that?
Well, I just told you, 84. Okay.
So, I got you.
You got it now. All right.
Thank you so much. That makes me feel young for today, at least.
I could ruin it. My birthday's next month.
Us 80-year-olds.
A month from a couple of days.
We can still garden. It's just that it takes us all afternoon to get down to do something, and then the rest of what the day has left just to get back up. So I don't plant as much as I used to, but I try and take better care of the ones that I've got. That it's getting to the point where I've got some plants that have been around a while, and they're starting to be meaningful. I hate to admit it, but it's kind of like my cat. I'd miss it if that wasn't there. So gardening is one of those things that it takes a commitment. It doesn't take a lot of knowledge, but it takes the commitment. And if you have that commitment, the ability to do it just comes along. It takes a little while. It's like anything else. So the people that say, I've got a black thumb, I can't grow anything, they just aren't trying. Anybody can grow things. It's just you don't have that innate knowledge because you're not born with it. But if you try a little bit, you fail, and when you fail, you learn something. And eventually, if you fail often enough, you get pretty good. And that's the point I'm at. I've made all the mistakes. Now I can sit back and tell people, you don't need to do that. I've already done the stupid stuff for you. Here's what works. So, and it's been fun. I love being a master gardener. This has been one of those things where it took me a long time to develop the knowledge. I didn't ever really try until I was late in life. I was in my 50s when I started growing things, and it's amazing. There are people out there that are true, absolute master gardeners. They were raised in a family where grandma grew things, mom grew things, and that knowledge is passed on. And those people have the ability to take anything, poke it in the ground, and get a tremendous crop. For the rest of us, it's an effort. And if you're just willing to put forth a little bit of effort, it's amazing. The office girl has a thing that says planting a seed is believing in tomorrow. And, that's true. It's you're part of life when you're being a gardener. So keep it up, enjoy it, and uh, you know that's how you get to be 84.
Good advice. I think we're going to finish up on that point. So, hey, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in today. Let me check my calendar. Am I here next week? What is next week? What's going on? Yes, I'll be here next week. So somebody will be here next week. We'll be here to answer all your lawn and garden questions and anything else that you have coming up. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in or watching the recorded version of the Plant Clinic. As always, if you have any other problems, questions, whatever, we're here to help. Just get a hold of us. We'll get back to you as quickly as we can, and we'll help you figure out what your problem is and what kind of steps you can take to go about fixing it. So until next Thursday morning at 10 a.m., we will see you then. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.